The Red Cross is on the scene, providing support for the displaced. There are many people who are displaced. They are trying to figure out what to do next. They are setting up a situation for them to temporarily stay in places in the area. They're setting up a family reunification center and providing mental health workers from across the country for the victims who survived this, the family members, and for the community at large. Again, there's hope they will find more people alive, but from the looks of the pile of rubble, Willie, it is a very difficult and heartbreaking scene. Hopefully the heavy machinery will arrive soon. Right now, they're just using saws and jackhammers and tunneling through the debris in the parking lot underneath all of this, which is halfway filled up with water, trying to tunnel through it all to see if they can find people.
Yeah, and one of the things we know, having covered so many tragedies over the years together, Mika, is that the first numbers we get usually are not the accurate numbers. So we heard initially there were 99 unaccounted for. These are all happening in real time. These change, they're dynamic situations. So that is a gut punch, 159 people unaccounted for. That's the updated number we received from the mayor just now. 4 dead. She didn't want to say it, but most expect that number from 4 to go up quite a bit. We still have with us the chair of the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Florida International University, Dr. Atarod Aziz Namidi. Doctor, we were having a conversation before that briefing began, just factoring in everything you see here, everything you know about the age of the building, 40 years old, constructed in 1981, near the ocean at sea level. There could be some corrosion from seawater. What are all of those factors that you'll be looking at as we try to determine a cause of this devastating tragedy?
There's a very good roadmap for investigating such a failure. You have to look at every piece of information attached, the history of this building, from the design calculation, design plan, the construction notes, taking the material samples from the steel and concrete, looking at the foundation behavior, looking at any history of the reports, talking to the people. And after you do all that, you also have to, we have the tools, both in the consulting office, more probably in the university level, that we can simulate all the different scenarios in the computer and recreate in the computer the images that shows how the building can collapse under the different scenarios. And then from that type of information is how we decide exactly what causes the collapse. Now, one point that, if I may make, in seismic regions like in West Coast, we know that the ground motion is unknown. So we design our buildings in the West Coast so that it can sustain a damage beyond even repair, but it does not collapse. I think beyond the first point that I made, that we need to probably try to inspect certain buildings located in certain locations more frequently, maybe once every 5 years or so. I also think that maybe we may have to look at some of our practice in the design, the way we approach the design of the high-rise building. But those are the issues that should come after we give time to the structural engineers, the consulting office, the people who are investigating this, to find out exactly what the cause of this collapse is, and then decide, okay, what changes do we need to make to the way we design, we construct, and then we inspect and we manage our high-rise buildings. I think those are the questions that should come later. But right now, I think the focus should be, hopefully, there are more people alive. That should be first in our thought right now. And kudos to those rescue people that they are really risking their lives.
You're right. The investigation will take months. So let's talk about the here and now. We want to say again that this is the best of the best in this country in terms of search and rescue. This Miami-Dade urban search and rescue has been deployed around the world for situations like this in far-flung places, now in their own backyard. We just heard at the press briefing, Doctor, that there are structural engineers on site. What are some of the challenges that the search and rescue teams now face from a structural engineering perspective as they try to find survivors?
You know, I think the structural engineers are doing their best. They have to do lots of guessing too, because all these rubbles have fallen on top of each other, so there is no saying how stable they are. We have no idea. The structural engineers will have no idea. So there are lots of risks that they are taking, I think, and they are doing their best based on the very minimal information they have. Imagine, I mean, you have this whole building, and it's even difficult to predict with 100% accuracy the behavior over time. Now imagine the building that part of it is collapsed, and you want to try to immediately on-site without having access to all kind of information trying to get. So I think these are I would put my faith on the judgment of the structural engineers. They are taking an educated guess and educated risk, and it gives you a comfort that you have structural engineers working hand in hand with the rescue people. I think that's a combination that should be.
Walter?
Ask about future preventions of things like this. What type of new technologies are there and would you like to see invented that could monitor and detect in real time the type of stresses that may be happening in buildings?
I think more than anything else, you know, the example of the seismic region that I mentioned, because of the so many years of experience, so many lessons that we have learned, we know that the ground motion, you cannot predict it. You can have an earthquake on the Richter scale 7, 8, 9 even. So what we do is we design the buildings so that it can sustain damage, but it doesn't collapse. I think in these kind of cases, let's assume that for a minute that maybe the ground settlement is an issue. I think we need to revisit some of our design provisions just to make sure that we take care of the different scenarios so that building can maybe sustain damage, gives us a warning before it collapses. Progressive collapse, for example, it's another example. These are more technical stuff. But I think more than anything else, the way we design our structures, the elements of the structures, beams, columns, and all that, they are designed so that it gives you some warning before they fail. The way to catch those and take the time to action is to inspection. We have to inspect this high-rise building. That's why I'm very high on that. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, I have come to the conclusion after seeing this that we need to inspect our buildings, certain buildings located in certain areas, more frequently, maybe once in 5 years. I think that's a discussion that the community, the structural community needs to get together, sit down, and decide. I think it's going to be more of a state-level decisions. I don't believe it's going to be a federal type of law that we have in the case of the bridge. But certainly at the state level, we should be sitting around the table and then saying, okay, guys, let's learn from this experience so that this doesn't happen. We should not have a single collapse like this anywhere. I mean, nowadays with all this technology.